Hello, welcome to the 25 Tuesdays with Way Instagram live series. As part of Way's 25th anniversary celebrations, we're sharing 25 different stories over 25 weeks. I'm Emma Gray, one of Way's ambassadors and co-host of the 25 year series. So in this part of the series, Kate and I have been talking to some of the faces behind Way. We've talked to Way's inspirational founder, Caroline Searle, and over the last few weeks, we've spoken to some of Way's incredible volunteers and one of the charity's newest team members, as well as our chair, Jo Sedley-Burke. You can see all of the previous conversations on the Instagram video channel and also over on the YouTube channel. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to two of Way's ambassadors, Georgia Elms and Orlanda Byers. They were both widowed when they were pregnant, but they have very different stories because of their marital status. They're going to be sharing their stories and talking about some of the injustices they're facing unmarried widows. And we're going to be highlighting some of the campaign work that Way has been doing to challenge these injustices. First, I'm going to invite Orlanda to join tonight's conversation. Orlanda was widowed when she was 5 months pregnant, and because she wasn't married, she found out she wasn't entitled to the bereavement support payments that her married counterparts are entitled to. And she had to battle the court system for 2 years to get her partner's name added to her daughter's birth certificate. So if you bear with me for a minute, I'm just going to add Orlanda into the call.
Hello.
Hello, it's worked. Brilliant. Fantastic.
And
welcome to 25 Tuesdays. Orlanda, do you mind telling us a little bit about what happened to you when your partner Julian suddenly died of a heart attack?
Yeah, of course. So Julian wasn't sick. There was no warning. He was very well in himself. We were on holiday. We were in France with a friend and with his 2 children. And it was very sudden. It was at night and very traumatic. It's been just over 3 years. And as you said, I was 5 months pregnant when it happened.
That's so sudden. I'm so sorry for your loss. When did you realise you were going to face issues registering Julian's name on your daughter's birth certificate?
So I got a text from a friend of mine who I knew independently of Way. I had no idea that she'd also been widowed and actually also had lost her partner when she was pregnant. So she gave me a heads up. I think it was about 2 weeks after everything had happened. And I was staying with Julian's family at the time. We were kind of in that regroup phase of trying to process and think what on earth to do next. And I got this warning and she just sort of said, look, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but, this is the situation. And I replied with, but what about, he was my next of kin. He was at all of my scans. What do you mean? And she said, look, it's not up to the registrar. So Julian's family and my family were like, we're not having this. We're going to get DNA. We're going to sort it this week. We're going to head this one off. So we sort of thought that would be enough. And, it should be. I mean, it's proof. But as my friend Joanna said, when it comes to registering your child, you need a marriage license or you need the father to be there to say, yes, this is my child. It's not enough to have proof and your word. I believe in other countries they're slightly more empowered and there's a different process involved. I don't really know the ins and outs, but here it's really a little bit stuck in the dark ages, I'm afraid.
And so you then had to go through an awful lot to try and make sure that his name was on birth certificate. Can you say a little bit about what you had to go through to make sure that actually happened?
Of course. So the first thing was I had to register her without a father, which was very hard. And her birth certificate was mostly blank. I mean, it's like half the page is, And that wasn't the registrar's fault. The registrar was perfectly nice. She didn't ask any questions. I was sort of ready to, you know, I don't know, shout or cry or whatever. Nothing like that came up. It was just a very short meeting. What I then had to do was apply to the courts. I had to fill out a form called a C63, Declaration of Parentage form, and submit that to the courts along with the DNA, a whole mountain of paperwork, evidence. You know, I put in things like our joint bank account statements. I put in the fact that we had joint tenancy, the fact, you know, screenshots of our messages, things from the hospital, all sorts of things like that. But one of the many problems with this process is that it's not designed for if one person isn't going to be there for whatever reason. There's no box you can tick to say, you know, deceased, or anything like that. And even though I put cover notes and additional comments and everything to say, like, this is the situation, this is what's happened, at every stage something would come up that would make it near impossible. And it took 4 court hearings. I went to court 4 times despite having proof. And at every point people were like, but you've got DNA. And I kept saying, yeah, no, I know. But the last judge decided that it was a problem that his death certificate was in French, because French people don't have children, right? Like, it was just insane. So I had to go and get that translated and certified. Yeah, there were a whole heap of just completely nonsensical paperwork things that came up. On the whole, the judges were nice, you know, but nobody expected it. The first judge was lovely, but, you know, he kind of said, look, I haven't seen this before, and I'm not really sure what to do. You know, you might have to go and come back. And, you know, I've been waiting for months, and, you know, my heart was in my throat about the whole thing. And actually, you know, Cassia at that point was only 3 months old. So I was in court for, I mean, hours, and I sat through most of the hearing breastfeeding because I had a 3-month-old baby. You know, it's not how you imagine your start of motherhood. But, you know, he was kind. He just said, look, you know, I haven't seen this before. And at every point, you know, an usher would say to me, oh, you know, is Mr. Rocky going to be joining? And I kept having to say it again, you know, this is what's happened. And at that point, things were extremely raw. And, you know, I had a very young child. So, yeah, it was extremely hard, to say the least.
Wow, my heart just goes out to you. 4 court hearings in 2 years just to get your child's dad's name on the birth certificate is just...
And I think also, you know, it's the fact that there were so many, and it's also the fact that, you know, some of the questions that came up were just completely not related to anything. You know, like I said, the fact that the death certificate was French makes no difference to who somebody's parenting. And yeah, I mean, one judge, the pandemic slowed things down, so I waited more than 6 months for my second hearing. And then on the day, you know, it's a logistical nightmare when you're a solo mother. Like, my mum very kindly took Cassia, but, you know, she was, I can't remember how old, 9 months old, crawling and just, you know, all over the place. And, you know, you can hear her in the next room. You're not allowed anyone in the court with you. And I remember her, you know, again, I know this is an awful thing to say. I shouldn't expect more from a female judge, but I did. And she showed very little compassion. She was an hour late, by which point I was in pieces. And she didn't have half my evidence. Half my evidence had got lost. So she was just looking at, you know, my council tax bill and was saying, what on earth am I looking at? And she said, oh, you know, well, maybe you can explain to me why you believe Julian to be the father. And I remember, you know, just being completely crushed and saying, this has nothing to do with belief. This isn't my belief. This is what's happened. And I said, we're only having this conversation because I don't have a marriage license. You know, it doesn't matter that we were engaged, that we tried for a child, you know, that this was completely unexpected. And this idea that for some reason I would be untrustworthy when, you know, we were the ones going through this horrible thing was, yeah, brutal.
Wow. And then obviously, because of your marital status, you weren't able to claim the bereavement support payment that people who are married or in civil partnerships are entitled to. And as far as I understand, it's a payment of £3,500 lump sum plus £350 per month for 18 months at the moment. And how did that make you feel, that you faced so many challenges because of your marital status? I mean, you've got the birth certificate, and then you've got these payments that you're not entitled to.
Yeah, I mean, when I first found out about that, there was so much going on. You know, obviously we weren't married, but we did have joint bills. We had a joint tenancy that I could no longer meet. I was, by this point, 6 months pregnant, and I'd finished working. And, you know, you can't get a new job when you're 6 months pregnant and you're having flashbacks and whatever else. So, yeah, there were so many financial horrors that hit me at that time that was one of them. That was a bit of a sting, because, I mean, I suppose the theory is that money, particularly the monthly payments, are to help raise a child. And I don't see why the livelihood of a child should depend on the marital status of the parents. I just can't see the correlation there, particularly when you think about quite how many children our Prime Minister has. It's like, it couldn't be more hypocritical. So there's that element. And yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, at the same time, so many other things were falling to me, like we just leased a new car, and I was told that the way to get out of that lease was to pay, it was more than 30 grand. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was eye-watering. And we'd leased it for like 10 days and it sat on the driveway. Yeah, so there was so many of those things at that time that, yeah, I remember that one stinging. But I think it's more those monthly payments would be really helpful, because raising a child is expensive.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, Orlanda, it's so amazing to have you here and to highlight this for so many other people who must also be going through something similar. I've got a few comments here. My wonderfully courageous cousin, giving you a little kiss there from Matt. And also Fiona, absolutely made to feel like we are some kind of criminal. Absolutely not. Shouldn't be like that at all. Just shouldn't be like that. So Away, obviously, through its campaigning work, has been trying to challenge some of these ideas. So I'm going to try and dial in Georgia Elms, who was widowed while she was pregnant in 2006 with her second daughter, Scarlett. So similar to you in that she was widowed when she was pregnant, but she was married, so slightly different. Georgia's a fellow Way ambassador. She was also chair of Way from 2010 to 2018. And in her role, she's been campaigning tirelessly to highlight the injustices facing young widowed people like yourself. So I'm always a bit slow with this, so apologies.
Don't worry.
Just going to hopefully, and then the technology takes a little while and I get nervous that it hasn't worked, but hopefully Georgia is here. Fabulous. Amazing. Welcome, Georgia. So I know you found out you were pregnant the day after your husband John died of meningitis, and I'm quite conscious that having two of you were quite tight for time, and there's a lot of stuff that we want to talk about. It must have been unbelievably difficult. Can you very briefly tell me what happened, and then we've got loads that we want to talk about. So
okay, so John went to bed on the Tuesday. He had a bit of a cough and a cold. He woke me up not very well at 4:30. And then by 9:38 the following morning, he was. I had to sign the form to switch off the life support machine, and he died. And it's not what you expect. I was 36. He was 38. We'd got a 1-year-old daughter. I remember saying when they told me, I was just like, but he's got a daughter. He can't die. And they had to give me, because I was within kissing contact with my husband and my daughter was, they had to give me some medication because of the meningitis, because it was a really, really serious form of it. They didn't actually know at the time which one it was, but they were really worried, so they just basically gave us everything. And they said to me, do you think you could be pregnant? Because the one they wanted to give me would have affected any unborn child. And I was like, well, possibly. I don't know. And they said, well, do you want to do a test now? And I was like, but he's dead right on this bed next to me. I can't do a test. So they went and got me something else. And I remember at some stage talking to my dad, and then literally they just came at me with this needle and just shoved it in my thigh. And that was to help me. But it's sort of, I was at the hospital for quite a while, and every sort of like 10 minutes they kept saying to me, you need to do a pregnancy test. And I was just like, I just couldn't get my head around it. But when I left, they spoke to everybody and they said, look, you need to make her do a pregnancy test. And the following day, my stepmom went down to Boots and bought one and came back, and I did it. And I just couldn't believe it when I had that little line. Well, she got me one of those tests that says pregnant, not pregnant, and it said pregnant, and it was just like, I just couldn't believe it. You know, I hadn't even got my head around the fact that my husband had died, and there I was pregnant with another child, and it was, yeah, it was awful because I didn't want to be. I thought I could swap this child for him. It was just horrendous. It should have been a really, really happy day. John wanted 5 kids, but it wasn't. Yeah. So, and then to have to go birth on my own without him and bring my daughter up. So basically, he was a marketing consultant, and he used to take time off every so often. And he took time off for the first year of our other daughter's life. So he was there. He was there with absolutely everything, and he wasn't there with this one, and it was just so hard. And the biggest thing is that he didn't know that she was, you know, that she even existed. So that's awful for him, but it's actually awful for Scarlett, my daughter. How I'll ever, I can't get over that.
I feel so much for you both, and I'm just so grateful on behalf of Way, and you know, so much for everyone else who's in a similar boat for sharing your stories. It's just amazing. I feel quite choked up hearing both your stories, I have to say. Because you were married, Georgia, you obviously received the widowed parents allowance, which was the precursor to what we call bereavement support payment now. Can you say a little bit about the difference that support, that financial support, made to you?
Okay, so before April the 6th, 2017, if you were married, when you were a widow and you had children, you got £500 a month until your youngest child left full-time education. So basically, because I'd been pregnant, I would have been entitled to about £80,000. Bearing in mind, this isn't based on tax or anything. It doesn't come from taxpayers. It is the national insurance that your partner paid. It's basically the pension that they don't claim. So it's not affected. No, nobody else is paying for it. It is money that he paid, but you do lose it if you move in with somebody. However, if you were living with somebody, as Orlanda finally found out, you are not entitled to that payment, which is just so wrong. So that money, I mean, the money, the bereavement support payment, which we are campaigning against because it is just not enough, that £350 a month that you get for 18 months, the government actually say it's not for bringing up the child. You don't need any money to bring up the child. Apparently that's enough from Universal Credit. It is all to do with the costs of the death. But 18 months is just not enough. So I had maternity leave, and I ended up, I was in a really stressful job, sales job. I was supposed to drive all around the country. I had to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't get childcare to fit it because childcare, really sort of paid childminders, is literally only from, you're lucky, and nurseries is from 8 till 6. I had to leave the house at 5 in the morning, and I wasn't going to get home until 7 o'clock at night. And I was getting so much hassle from my boss for, we need to see you in the office. We need to see you doing this. And when I had an interview, they hadn't told me any of this. So I took the decision to actually give up work because I just literally could not do it, and work in a cafe. And basically that £500 a month helped pay, helped live. And, you know, I had 2 very small children that I was trying to deal with my grief. So that really, really helped. And it was money that John had paid for. So why they are doing this thing now, it is just not fair. And the whole point about changing from parents' allowance to bereavement support payment in April 2017 was they were modernising the benefit. And also, supposedly, they weren't going to be saving any money. Well, they're actually saving £100 million a year on this. And the bit about modernising, yeah, I know. and actually, that's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. I know we all think, yeah, I mean, if I had £100 million, but when you think about the billions that are being spent, you know, £37 billion on test and trace and all that, so it's not a lot of money, but it is a lot of money to people who are trying to bring up children. But then when they modernised it, they didn't bring in the fact that people who hadn't been married. Now, a child doesn't decide whether or not their parents are going to get married. And why should the government say people are not going to get married? One of their reasons is, oh, it's too difficult, it'd be too upsetting for people to have to get documents. Well, Orlando's just proven that you had to get documents for that. And actually, we all know when you lose your partner, you have to find separate documents for everything else. And actually, if you know you're going to get money. So anyway, it has been a really long campaign. Way was part of a group of charities that actually took the government to court in the end because they just kept on ignoring it, not doing anything about it. Took them to court, and it was found to be against the human rights of the child for them not to be paying this money. But this was August the 30th, 2018. It's the Siobhan McLaughlin case. She was really brave and did this. So the government was found in contempt, but they still haven't sorted anything out. Now, it's literally 3.5 years since they were found. They have done a remedial order. They are going to pay. They are now going to start paying. But once the law has changed, and they are going to do a backdated payment, but apparently they're too busy in Parliament to actually do the second one. So cost of living, everything that's happening at the moment, the government is too busy to sort this out. So it is just horrendous, and I know how much people need this money, and it's just poor children who didn't, you really need to be, so I know there are people who are losing their house, are having to do 2 or 3 jobs to try and survive because they haven't got this money, which actually the government now admit these people are entitled to, but because they're too busy, they're not having it. And the other awful thing is that people who are widowed now, who weren't married, when they apply for the payment, they're told they're not entitled to it. They are, and they will get it, and it will be backdated. They will get this money that they're owed once the government has had time in Parliament to sort it. But then that is won't be the end of our campaign, because 18 months is not enough. As I said, so it doesn't take 18 months to bring a child up. It's just not. So we're trying to get that extended. The universal credit is not enough for people to live off anyway, let alone people who are down to one salary. So we are campaigning to have it raised to be paid for 6 years, or until your youngest child finishes their first year at secondary school, because we believe that it needs to be paid longer, because the universal credit isn't enough for people to live off. So there's 2 things campaigning for.
You have just done so much hard work, Georgia. It's just amazing. So am I right in saying that the 2 big issues then are that the bereavement support payment should be extended for 18 months to 6 years, and then it should also, the second part, it should be extended for everybody, so not just married people? Are they the main 2 issues that you're campaigning on now then?
Yeah, well, as I say, we have actually won the campaign to mean that people who had children but weren't married, are entitled to it, but okay. They're just not sorting out the situation to do that. But we are actually also supporting a court case of people who didn't have children, because they have as much rights. Again, it is still national insurance that their partner pays.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. And just for anybody at this moment who's similar to Orlando and yourself, is relatively recently widowed, or especially within the last 6 years, is there anything they should be doing so that they can make sure that when the government does get organised, they could get their bereavement support payment, or is that not even sure yet?
At the moment, we don't really, it's a case of waiting. We will be jumping from the rooftops, screaming it to everybody we can when you are able to claim for it. So obviously, if you're a member of Way, then you'll get to hear straight away. As soon as I get that email or that phone call or that letter, I will be telling people. But we do, at the moment, we can't do any press around it because of the situation that we're trying, because we are in negotiations with the government to hurry it up. But when we do it, we could really do with case studies. So if we have anybody that is willing, who has been widowed, with children or without children, and is prepared to, but weren't married, is prepared to talk about their story, it really, really helps. Just before the government agreed on the backdated payment, I actually sent through 30 case studies to them, just with basically saying what these people were going through. I just literally, I was so cross. I had a very difficult meeting with them, and I just sent it through to them. I thought, you read that. This is what I read every day. This is what I know going through. Stop seeing these people as somebody on a piece of paper. You need to know what these people are going through. So yeah, case studies. If people could contact Vicky or media@widowedandyoung.org.uk, saying that if they're prepared to give their stories, that really, really helps.
Fabulous. So if anyone is kind of happy to have their case study out there, that would be brilliant. If they contact Vicky Media@Way, that would be fantastic. That's amazing. And within that, so your next steps are following through with all of this, aren't they, and trying to actually get a conclusion to these issues with all of that. Is there any more you want to say on that, Georgia?
I mean, it's just for people to know that they will get this money. It's just when. And we are trying as hard as we can to get it quicker. You will get it. I know, so there's a Facebook group that I belong to, and there's people saying, do I need to apply for it? No, you will. You need to apply for it when you're entitled, when they say you are entitled to it. We will let you know. We don't know what proof you have to give or what the process will be. The government are working that out, apparently. But it will happen. Hope it's as soon as possible.
Let's hope the government get themselves sorted on that. I'm just going to quickly go to some comments, and then I've got some questions I would love to ask you both, if that's okay. So someone said Orlanda is an absolutely incredible soul, helping so many others. Thank you so much. So that's lovely. And someone else saying, I'm 11 months in. I tried to apply once I heard I would qualify, but still told it's not available to me. So that's what you were saying. And Vicky saying, get in touch, media@widowedandyoung.org.uk. So that's what you were saying about case studies. So that would be fabulous. One of the other things that we're going to talk about is the extra challenges of being widowed whilst you're pregnant and going through pregnancy and labour without your partner by your side. I mean, my partner was with me. I was fortunate enough, but actually being someone who was in the forces, I wasn't sure whether he was going to, but that's just a totally different ballgame from the two of you. Orlanda, what was it like for you going through pregnancy and labour without your partner and him having so suddenly died?
So suddenly gone. So he was at our 20-week scan. It was the following day that it happened. So I found it really very, very hard to go back to the hospital without him. I found the scans really hard. The hospital were really, really supportive. They gave me a mental health midwife who gave hints and tips and basically told me I had to cry and I had to stop trying to stay in that shock phase. She was quite frank but kind and sort of said, look, if you don't cry and if you try and just keep it all in, actually your baby's brain can stop developing and horrible things can happen due to shock. So I did my best to cry it out as much as I could during pregnancy, but you know what, like, no, see a crying pregnant woman, it's so hard. I think a lot of people want to feel that you're bringing some hope to the situation, and for you it's so hard because you're the one living it, and all of the vernacular around becoming a new mum just doesn't feel like it applies to you. I think people love to tell expectant mothers how they must be feeling and how they will feel and how everything will go and how they'll feel that first moment that you hold your child and all of this stuff that actually I think lets a lot of mothers down. And equally, I think that people love telling people how they must feel and how they will feel, and how, you know, all of the adages of time heals and blah blah blah. So you know, you get it at both sides. I don't know if you agree, Georgia, but I just felt I was getting so much unsolicited advice. So that side of things was hard. Physically, I was really lucky. I didn't really have any problems in terms of, you know, anything going wrong in terms of labor or anything like that. And I have such a wonderful family that I had so many offers of people who wanted to doula for me. At one point I had something like 9 doulas being like, I will support you, you know, all these wonderful people swooped in, and actually I just didn't want to talk to anyone. But yeah, you know, physically everything went fine. It was more just that thing of everyone saying really unhelpful stuff around, oh, your baby's going to bring you so much joy, and you're thinking, you do it. Seriously, you do it. My life is about to get even harder. I'm going to be really tired, really broke. Like, no, it's no, they might not, you know. So yeah, it's very conflicting. It's very conflicting. But you know what? We're both really healthy. Cassia's 2.5, and yeah, no physical problems.
I'm so pleased about that, but I'm so sorry about all the unsolicited advice. I think people think they're trying to help, don't they? But
yeah,
No,
Georgia, yeah, I was going to say, Georgia, how was it for you?
I mean, for me, it was really hard because, as I said, John had taken the year off and been with Daisy, so, and he had been there, so it was my second child, so I knew what it was supposed to be like. I knew that I was supposed to have him, you know, like saying, God, anyway, hurry up, and I'm knackered, and you know, and it was just like, it just wasn't the same. And yeah, I had all the unsolicited advice. It was like, well, at least you've got a baby, you know, you've got the baby.
Yeah, at least.
But I want both, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and also I had this horrendous fear that something was going to happen to her, and everyone said, no, you've already had something go wrong, and I'm like, no, that doesn't
work that way. Yeah.
So it was, yeah, it was horrible. And I mean, yeah, the hospital were quite good to me, and they said they'd put me in a separate room. But then as a result, I was in a separate room. I was like literally away from it, and everyone left me alone. They didn't really know what to do with me. And, you know, because I said I didn't want to see fathers coming in, but I was just literally stuck in this room. I think it was about, you know, literally from morning to night, nobody came to see me. And as a result, they didn't sign me out or whatever. So I was actually in hospital for about sort of 4 days with my youngest, and I was...
Yes.
And it was just, you know, and just coming home was just horrid. Everything was not the same as it should have been, and I think that's what I found really, really hard. I mean, yeah, your body takes over, you know. It's, well, you know, I had exactly the same issues that I'd had before, a retained placenta and everything, and my TENS machine fell off, and I literally was sure that he was there laughing at me, so I screamed at him. My two friends really worried, but I was just like, I hadn't thought the TENS machine was doing anything until then. But no, it was just, I don't know, it was just such an I mean, it was absolutely wonderful to have another baby girl who was, you know, she's got his temper and everything, but it just wasn't what it was supposed to be, you know. And I've now got this wonderful 15-year-old daughter who definitely does have his temper, but he doesn't know about her, and she doesn't know about him, and it's just not right. It's not how life's supposed to be. And, you know, yeah, 15 and a half years on, I'm relatively okay. That is all down to Way. Way is what saved me. Way is what got me through it all. I mean, when I joined Way, 4 months after I found out that, you know, 4 months after John had died, because somebody gave me an article that was in Pregnancy and Birth magazine of a previous chair who was pregnant when she was widowed. I joined after 4 months because I thought I got this thing that if I joined a group for widows, I would be officially widowed, you know, which I couldn't cope. But I joined, and literally the day after I joined, I found out about somebody who was due the same day as me. So I had lots of phone calls with her, and I even went to see her. And, you know, I spoke to her the day, you know, sort of after I'd given birth, and she had, they were like literally born, you know, about 2 days apart. And then all the congratulations that I got from Way members, it was on this forum that we had called Topica, which is far different to what it is now, Facebook. I got about 400 congratulations, and that meant so much more to me than, you know, the platitudes about, oh, everything's going to be okay now you've got a baby. It was just wonderful because they all knew what I was going through. So Way has really helped me. But yeah, I am. I've got a daughter who doesn't know her dad, and that is just, I'll never get over that.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? It's so sad. And from what you were saying, the thing that really sticks with me about Way, what you were just saying, is that, you know, it's unique for all of us, but the thing that Way does is bring you as close to possible as to someone who might get it and who might have been through it. And I can't believe you got 400 messages. That's just like huge. But Orlanda, how's Way helped you in your journey? Because obviously you're not quite 15 years through. You're only at two and a bit. But
it's bizarre everything you're saying, Georgia. It's I couldn't agree more. Particularly the things around friendship and knowing that you're talking to some people who have some idea of what you're talking about, and knowing that those congratulations mean something. Because of that, I've had a very similar thing whereby I've now made two very, very close friends through Way, both of which also lost their partners during pregnancy, and all three of us have got little girls born within the same month. I think they're about 3 weeks apart, and they've become honestly like my closest friends. And we all went to York last year, which was mayhem because we all had 18-month-olds, and it was chaos. And we're meeting up again. We're all going to Center Parcs in June, which will be fantastic. But I think that thing, you know, like you say about the birth being around the same time, having someone with the same timeline is really helpful as well, because, you know, you're going through similar things at similar times, like, you know, potty training and all of those. You've got someone else you can message with, who gets it. And Georgia, I was wondering, could I ask a question? Sorry. Let me. No, I just wondered if you had advice around talking to. Did you say with your little girl around her, you know, around her dad, or like how did you address that with her? How do you talk about him with her?
I'm truthful. You can't hide anything, and some people say to do it, but no, there is a fact that children don't understand death until they're 6. So the one thing you are gonna have, and I hate saying this, is you get it in waves, but it probably will be worse when they're 6.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Cass asked me a lot, but she went through a phase of asking me a lot over the space of about a month, and now it's dropped away. But I guess they talk about puddles, don't they? And,
they say children jump in puddles. They have puddles of it. And I've had times where I was bathing my kids, and they would say, "What was Daddy wearing when he died?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, he's wearing a pair of white boxer shorts," you know. And then they start throwing water on each other, and they're laughing, and I'm still crying and trying to. And I think that's very hard. It's the fact that they're very, because children live in the moment. I mean, it is really hard, but it doesn't stop, and that's what I feel. You know, I've still got now, you know, with my children, they have bits, you know, at the moment they don't want to talk about him at all, and then other days they do want to talk about him, and I'm often at a different stage to them, but you just have to go along with what they do. I mean, I had a time when my daughter was 2 and she was playing at a friend's house, and they were all chasing their dad, and she started calling him Daddy.
That happened.
And that was, you know, and that happens, and you just have to take that, and it is just, it's horrible, but it's that they don't understand what they're doing. But as I say, they really, really don't understand the concept of death until they're 6. So my kids have had counselling over like 3 or 4 times, at different as they've been at different stages. When something big happens in their life, you know, so like when we moved house or they've moved schools, it seems to come up. And I just had to try and be as honest with them as possible. But also, I've said that he had a temper. I've said that he was a real git. You know, I have. They need to know, because I mean, once they did actually. One of them said, "I hate you. I wish you died." And Daddy wouldn't have told me off. And I just turned around and said, he'd have been stricter than.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so it is, but then sometimes it, you know, they'll say, I wish you'd stop talking about him. So it's just really hard. I don't know if I do it right, but I mean, yeah, you just have to be honest, but it's just expect that 6, 7, it will be difficult, and they won't, and she will probably try and play it off with you. And you know, it's like, so my kids, if they didn't want to go to bed when they were little, it's like, oh, can you tell me about daddy, because they knew I would talk about him then. And you know,
Yeah, and you want to, you're like, yeah, yeah.
or you know, then go to sleep, and it would then upset me for the rest of the evening. I would then go downstairs and drink a bottle of wine, and you know, it's like, because I was talking, you know, yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. Sorry, I want to say, but yeah, just be honest. Just be honest with her. You know, there's lots of things they say you shouldn't say. You shouldn't say that, you know, that he got very ill and died, because then they panic about being ill themselves or you, or, you know, it can be that, you know, they've kind of gone up to heaven, can cause things, because then they look in the sky and think, can they come back? It's very, yeah. But
Factual.
Find where your nearest child bereavement place is. They will help. They know how to help it. So my kids did a lot of play therapy, and that helped.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's such a great question, though. That was just so amazing. And two things stand out hugely for me from that. The first is you saying about 6, because my younger daughter was 6 when her dad died, and I don't think she understood what was going on. And then recently she's gone up to senior school, and it's all come back with, like, hit her in the face, and she's struggling to cope with it all. And I think it's because I've spoken to my elder daughter and said, you know, there is no right way to do it, but could I have told them any other way, and all the rest of it? And she said, well, Mum, the difference is I'd already worked out he wasn't going to stay alive, whereas I don't think Sophie had got it. And my younger daughter, being a young 6, I just don't think understood it. And I think that 6 age is really hard. And so I would also strongly recommend reaching out to any children bereaved support groups in your area, because my kids have all had play therapy and counselling and stuff, and it has just helped so much. It really has. And then that puddle thing, I just love it. My kids will ask me at the worst moment possible a really deep and meaningful question, and part of me wants to park it and pick it up with them later, but I know they won't be in the puddle later, and it's like, oh, okay, so I'll answer this now and I'll get really into it, and they'll be really into it, and then suddenly I'll be keeping on going and they'll be off doing something else, and I'm like, oh, hold on, I'm still explaining this to you, and this is like a really big deal.
Yeah, no, I would say something else is let them see you cry.
Yes.
Because if you don't cry, then they don't cry, and they don't want to upset you, which is an awful thing for them to have to live with, as well as everything that's going on. So I was told by the child bereavement to say, actually let them cry, because they need to see you cry, because they need to know that it's okay for them to.
And I had exactly the same, and my kids would then say, Mummy, don't cry, and I'd say, I'm allowed to cry because this is very sad, and when sad things happen you cry, and so Mummy is crying. And I had to like spell it out to them. But yeah,
in this, what I will say, the other big thing is actually that the child bereavement place said to me is that if you're okay, the kids will be okay.
Yeah.
Like the analogy of the oxygen mask on a plane. So you know, they always say, put your mask on before helping others. So I was absolutely obsessed with getting the right amount of sleep, with, you know, I mean, before John died, I'd only had half an hour away from my youngest daughter. But I had to really make sure that I had time away to actually go and be me, and actually have a sleep, and do stuff and look after myself, and not just, a lot of people, you know, and understandably they take their kids to the bereavement counselling, they do all that, they worry about them, but actually you need to be okay as well, otherwise you can't support them. So I've had lots of various counselling, and also, you know, go to a away event, and I was like, oh my god, I can't afford to go, but it's like, actually no, I need to go because I know I will feel better.
Which goes back to that bereavement support. A friend of mine, one of the 2 women I was just talking about with the children born the same time as Cassia, told me the other day that she heard that it takes on average £30,000 more to raise a child alone than to co-parent, which I can completely understand, because the amount of times you have to throw money at things like childcare, and we were joking last night about Amazon Prime and like emergency delivery things, because you're one person. It's just you need that extra help, and you need that childcare, and childcare is extremely expensive, particularly before the age of 5. So
yeah, it's the evening childcare. I had later on, I had a job which meant I had to take people out. I had to entertain. I was working fundraising, and it was £30 for a babysitter, and actually I couldn't claim that back. I couldn't get that back, and actually it was quite. 1 week I had to get to go out 3 nights, and that was 90 quid, and I wasn't earning much, and it was just
the tiredness as well.
Yeah, but it's the hidden cost that people aren't aware of, because they haven't got a husband to look at. You haven't got your husband to look after them in the evening, and benefits do pay for childcare, but they only pay for childcare between 8 and 6. So it's a real problem, because you have to have. I've said all this to DWP. I think oh gosh, it's Georgia again. But yeah, they really had it truthful, because there is a lot of limitations. It's very, very difficult being a single parent when you haven't got. And I know it's really bad for people who are divorced, but even if it's not going great and they don't have them all the time, they will have them sometimes. Whereas you've got them 24/7 and paying for them 24/7.
Yeah, and it's just such a different scenario, and it's one that is often compared. And it's difficult because they're very different.
The amount of people that said to me, "Oh, I've had it like you this weekend because he's gone away on a golfing weekend," and you just
oh boy, yeah, or like, oh well, I had to watch him watch her, I had to like whatever, and you're like, oh, yeah, it's just not the same. And like you say, you saw him as a dad. Julian had children. He was a fantastic father. So, it's very frustrating when people tell you these terrible comparisons.
Oh, sorry, Georgia, you go on.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry. What I was going to say is that I suppose what I do keep telling myself is that people are trying to make you feel better.
Yeah, and they're trying to relate, which is important. Yeah.
And actually, it's very good that they don't actually understand what we're going through, because of
I don't want
that.
I don't want
to understand.
Yeah, no, and people trying to relate is not a bad thing. It's just sometimes.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. People just sometimes want to say something as well, don't they? And sometimes it's better to just say, I don't know what to say, than to say the wrong thing. If you're not sure, you can totally and utterly say, I don't know what to say. I want to say something, but I don't know what to say, rather than say the wrong thing. I'm really mindful of time. I could talk to you two ladies for forever. Just really quickly, because I don't want to go over the hour, but Orlanda, can you tell us a little bit about the subgroup for people who've been widowed and pregnant? Just so that the other people who are widowed and pregnant, obviously you have to be a WAY member in order to be a part of the group, but if you could just explain how it works on Facebook, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So there's lots of different subgroups within WAY. There's lots of people who are linked by interest, location, and all these sorts of things. There is a subgroup for people who have been widowed whilst pregnant. It's not hugely active because we're a particularly tired subgroup, I think. Most people have got really young kids or babies in that group. But yeah, there's 6 of us, I think, at the moment. 2 of those are very, very good friends of mine. And then there's a whole heap of meetups, and I know there's new member Zooms, which I never did, but sounds really helpful.
Yeah, there is so much that WAY provides, and so many different subgroups, and it's not all about your status. There's subgroups for cats and people with things, horses and cook, and with kids, without kids, and all the rest of it. I'm just going to have a quick look at some of the comments just before we wrap up. Someone said that they maybe wanted to join, but unfortunately we just do the talks with the people who are here. So if you have a case study and you would like to get in contact with anyone, as we mentioned before, Vicky, who's media at Widowed and Young. That's who you need to contact. Someone said, I have a 6-week-old baby. My partner passed when I was 14 weeks pregnant. It's so hard doing this without him, but our baby brings me strength. I'm so pleased you get strength, but gosh, that does sound so hard. Someone said, why can't I hear you? I'm not sure about that, but I hope that this will record with the volume, and then that'll be all right. Someone else said, I had the most incredible midwife. She lost her daughter 2 weeks after delivery, so we had both experienced grief, be that different grief. She was honest, real, validated my feelings, and that sounds amazing. I'm so sorry for her loss as well as your loss, but that does sound amazing that someone validated what you were going through. Phil, she's continued on. There's what I may be feeling down the line. We cried together. I spoke about my other half. She spoke about her daughter. Gosh, that sounds amazing. We'll be saving the we will definitely be saving this on Instagram and YouTube, so I can't go over the hour, otherwise we can't save it. Someone else has said, incredible ladies, so heartbreaking. You are both incredible. Oh, brilliant. Whoever couldn't hear can hear now, so that's all really good. Lost my husband very suddenly, a matter of hours. I was moving house, and I've been packing all day. It's been very upsetting. Gosh, I can't imagine. My heart goes out to you. I hope you find some support. And someone else has said some people have no idea. Yeah. Must have been so difficult for you. I had my children very young. I'm 47, my son is 30, yes, my daughter is 28. We're very close. They don't stay with me. I'm staying alone. Wow. So thank you everyone for all your comments and for sharing. The two of you, thank you so much for sharing your heartbreaking stories tonight, and for all the work you're both doing as Way ambassadors to highlight the change and challenge the injustices that widowed families are, especially widowed unmarried as well as widowed married, and those without children, with the bereavement support payment. If you want to read more about Orlanda's story and her advice for other women who were pregnant and unmarried when their partner died, then if you go to the news tab on Way's website, there's an article on there which is www.widowedandyoung.org.uk. on the news tab. You can also find out lots of information on our website about joining Way if you've been widowed at a young age. It's obviously a support network. It's mainly peer-to-peer, and it's been very beneficial. In my lovely notes it says for Georgia and Orlanda, but definitely also for myself. And next week we're going to be starting these conversations are in blocks. So this one was about faces relating to Way. The next mini series is on books and blogs. It's part of Way's 25 Tuesdays with Way Instagram live series, and we've got Way member and blogger Sam Robinson talking to a series of writers and authors over the next 6 weeks, including the writer Lucy Brownlee, and Way members Steph Nemo, and we're also hoping to talk to some very exciting other people. I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to say it yet, so I'm not going to say it just in case I'm not allowed to. So do tune in next Tuesday at 8 p.m. to hear Sam talk to his first guest, who's going to be Justin Bowen, a Way member who has written 2 books, one inspired by his late wife's Facebook posts, and the second book inspired by one of his daughter's paintings called Be the Rainbow, which offers a practical guide for supporting bereaved children, which I think is very topical on what we were talking about tonight. But to the two of you, huge thanks. I'm really grateful, and this hopefully will be recorded. So hopefully. Do you want to say anything very quickly before we finish, either of you? Orlanda?
No, just thank you so much, to both of you for sharing, and all the campaigning. Crikey, that's really helpful.
Georgia?
Well, no, I'm just saying, please join. If you're widowed, please join Way. It really, really helps. As I say, I don't know if I'd be here. I wouldn't be sane. My children wouldn't be running around screaming at me, telling me I'm a terrible mother because I don't let them go on their phones. It's for Way.
Yeah, it is a fabulous organisation. And also the other thing I would add to what you've just said is that sometimes it's personality based. So I joined and then I wasn't sure I wanted to be labelled a widow, and then I rejoined another sort of a couple of years later. So it's absolutely fine if it's not for you straight away. It's not for you straight away.
Yeah.
But what I'm passionate about is everyone hears about it and they have the option to join. And sometimes you don't immediately click with people, but you leave it a bit of time and you suddenly do click with someone. So you know, I hope that the subgroups and the events and all the rest of it enable there to be something for everybody. So yeah, thank you very much to the both of you. Really, really grateful. And I'm going to press pause now, so hopefully this will be recorded. So yeah, thank you both very much.
Bye.
Bye.